I personally think that GoPro is a really terrible company. Recently, they've done really stupid things like put third-party mount makers out of business because they want to have that market for themselves, because they've been such a dying company. They don't make any new products. They don't do anything really super revolutionary. They're very slow to evolve. They don't even give the user what they want. So I really don't like GoPro. And for the longest time, for a year and a half, more than a year and a half, almost 2 years, I held out. I didn't even want to use the GoPro. The only GoPros I used on my quads were GoPros that I used that were given to me by production companies for various projects and, you know, shooting scenes or whatever that we were doing. And I looked for every other possible alternative. I looked through every single one of those China cams. The Yi, when it came out, that was really the best option for a really long time. It also had the script that allowed it to do SuperView, which was not even remotely like GoPro SuperView, but it was at least somewhat kind of similar to GoPro, so it was kind of nice and neat. And I thought that it was good enough. It was like 85–90% of what a GoPro can do. And so then recently, Runcam came out with their Runcam 3 that GoPro shut down because they were using all the same mount system, like the ecosystem of mounts would fit the Runcam 3. And I agree with GoPro on that fact, because I don't think it's fair for another company to step in and just take advantage of this huge ecosystem that GoPro has developed over many, many years and get all that advantage. And I don't know if the user or the buyers are going to be really just swindled and confused by the fact that it looks like a GoPro and they think it is the same quality as a GoPro, which could be. That's the iPhone versus Samsung argument. But I personally think that the argument that they should not be allowed to take advantage of the whole ecosystem that GoPro developed is a strong enough argument for them to stop production on the Runcam 3. And I actually thank GoPro for doing that. But in general, I really don't like GoPro because of their stagnant nature. They really have done nothing. They've just slowly innovated things. That being said, do not underestimate the performance and the power of the GoPro and particularly the Session 5. This thing is really impressive. It's not perfect. I do wish it had a higher bitrate for, you know, the higher resolutions, but for the most part, not for the most part, definitely, I have not seen any camera, no action camera, maybe the Panasonic one, but that's like $100 more than the GoPro, and it's huge also. There's no other action camera that can even begin to approach the quality of the GoPro. And the closest one I have seen is the Legend 3. I've had the Legend 3 for a long time. Of course, I lost the last two that I had. They just like fell in a bush and I can't find them. But the Legend 3 and the new Cube camera that Foxeer is coming out with has the same overall quality as the GoPro, but the SuperView looks a little bit weird. And I think it's because of the lens. Foxeer thinks it's because of the algorithms that GoPro is running. They think that it makes it look different. I personally think that the GoPro lens is actually not a very super high-end lens. I think it's a very artsy lens. It's just an off-the-shelf lens that they had developed for them. Foxeer has created a lens that is very, very, very well made, and it's very correct. But I think in being so correct, it actually looks worse. That's another discussion altogether. I've been going on about that with them for a long time. So Runcam recently came out with their Runcam Split, and that's great. And it looks great, and it's really good for one particular purpose, but it's not something that me or any top pilot is going to use because it doesn't quite meet the needs that we want. If you're running a GoPro or some sort of HD camera on your quad, you want to get really, really nice footage. You want to get the best footage you can get of whatever you do, and that's why people use the GoPro. The Split is not going to give you that. No Runcam is going to give you the best quality footage. Yes, it's not bad, and personally, I think that, not personally, publicly, I would say that the main use for the Runcam Split will be people that are just basic Sunday flyers, Sunday racers, and want to have really good race footage to look at after the race. They're not going to be using it to make production videos. They're not going to be using it to make high-end YouTube whatever content. They're going to be using it just to view the race over again, share with friends, and, you know, have fun with it. And that's excellent. And that's what it should exactly be used for. The problem is that it won't really fit in all of the race frames, which is another story altogether. But people are expecting to be able to pick up this camera and make like really nice like Johnny Share type videos with it. That's not going to happen. And Joshua Bardwell recently did his whole series on action cams and bitrate of GoPros and bitrate of Runcams and all the other cameras and whatnot, and showed various things here and there. But for the most part, the best possible footage you can get from an action camera today is from the GoPro at 2.7K, 30 frames per second, super view. That is a very specific way, a specific setting. Like, that setting is the best setting on all the GoPros, and it has been for a really long time, and people have known that for a really long time. YouTube also seems to like 2.7K video. It does a really good job of encoding it. Some features that I wish GoPro would give us is control of the shutter speed and the ISO. I really want to set my ISO maximum. I don't want it to go past a certain ISO. And that's because when you're shooting at 30 frames per second on a quad that's moving really quick, if you're in bright sunlight, it can look kind of jittery. It can look like a flip book. So that's why some people kind of prefer the 60 frames per second. But to the eye, 60 frames per second just doesn't look as pretty, and that's been documented, over and over and over again in movies and whatnot. And Lord of the Rings came out in 60 frames per second and 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second, and people, they viewed the audience interaction with the film, and they saw that people that are watching the 24 and 30 frame per second videos were like cheering and excited and happy, whereas people watching the 60 frame per second video were just sitting there watching the movie, and it was not really that special to them. Something weird about 60 frame per second. It's really good for sports, really good for action, but it doesn't really, doesn't really look cinematic, and doesn't look pretty to the eye. I haven't read all the research, so I don't know why that is. I personally think that sometime in the future we should really move to a variable frame rate. Like for movies, when there's action, I would like it to be about 48 frames per second, and during the rest of the movie I want it to be 24 frames per second, because I want to see the action, I want to see the excitement. But anyways, back to the GoPro. I really wish that they would give me the option of setting a maximum ISO, because when your ISO gets too high, the shutter speed gets really low and it looks like a flip book. You don't get any blurring, you don't get any blend between the frames, and then 30 frames per second starts looking not so good. So in conclusion, this little 72 gram cube is really the best option you have for any of our quads today, unless you want to go with a professional camera. Oh yeah, another thing, I wish that GoPro would give me the option to change my lens. I want to be able to put different lenses on it. That's two products that they could easily make that they could expand their market with. Anyways, so this is the best camera you can get for your quad, for your setup. The best setting is 2.7K 30 super view. There is no Runcam or any other camera that can even touch this camera's quality, and the Legend 3 is the closest thing, and it actually is slightly better in some regard, because it does give you the option to set your ISO, and that is a really good feature. And Foxeer will add the other features that I told them to add in the future in the software, because they recognize that it's a valuable feature. I've convinced them that it's a valuable feature. In addition, I told Foxeer to make something like the Runcam Split, basically just their Legend 3 on a wire, like a year ago. Straight up a year ago, I told them, this is ridiculous. You have to put this on a wire. Stop making these stupid box cameras. Nobody likes this dumb form factor. It doesn't fit into anything. And if you make this right form factor, people will start making frames and designs and setups specifically for this camera. And it'll be great, because it'll weigh nothing and it can't break, because the actual camera is so small, and you can make it very, very protected inside the frame. They've still been working on it. They've been dragging their feet on it. I don't know why they've been doing it, but that is the camera that I'm actually looking forward to, because it does have a form of super view. It's not quite as good as the GoPro super view, but it is a form of super view that is way better than Runcam super view, because it's not so distorted. And I could actually use that to make some real content, because it does look really pretty. The video is very, very nice. It's not quite as nice as the GoPro, but it's like 98%, very, very similar. They're using I think it actually uses a higher bitrate, so I actually prefer that, because the GoPro still has some minor artifacting. Anyways, that's it. Public service announcement. I didn't expect it to be 10 minutes long. Don't forget to floss. Bye-bye.